I'm Stephen Foskett here at AI Field Day, and we are giving you, a look inside the kind of conversations that the delegates have about the bigger issues of technology. When it comes to AI, one of the biggest questions that has been arisen is basically, is this product useful? Is this product serving a need? Is this product the result of design, or is it just something that we have because we have it, right? We figured out how to do this, so we're darn gonna do this. Unfortunately, in many cases, in society and humanity, we tend to do what we can do without asking first, should we do it? Or is this serving a need? And honestly, this stuff is so darn cool. I think that's, to me, it reminds me of when the Macintosh came out and you had all these fonts and clip art and stuff, and everybody started making newsletters and banners and stuff because it was just so darn cool to do it. It was so pretty. You could print it off and you hold it up and you just, look what I did, right? That was completely useless. We now would laugh at that. That's kind of LLMs, right? I mean, is it really useful to have the thing write a haiku about haichu candies? No, but it can do it. And so let's do it, right? Is it really useful? All these things. So the question is, did anyone really ask for this?
I'll just one quote and I'm going to shut up, I promise. I go back to Henry Ford's quote. If I had asked people for what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. So, I mean, that says it all.
I'll add to that. Another kind of axiom that I use is when you're in this fast evolution, or when you're just in a startup, it's today's products are tomorrow's features. And a lot of things that we see created are innovations, but they may not be a category. They may not be a big industry. They may be an innovation that belongs as part of something else. It may be a standalone company, whatever. So in terms of investing in technologies and choosing the right LLM or what development tool to use that's got AI, keep in mind that will probably be replaced in a year by something else that's better or been incorporated into somebody's product.
And I was going to just take the approach that there's a lot of beneficial stuff coming out of AI, but I think an awful lot of it is being driven by the people who are making money off of it, selling high margin either services or equipment. And these are an awful lot of these people are saying, you really need these things to be able to go forward in life. And oh, by the way, buy some of our stuff. And I think there's a genuine demand for it, but I also think that there's demand generated by the people who potentially profit from it.
And I think that AI has amazing potential as well, like I think all of us do. But when we connect that to a brain-computer interface, do we want that to be a read-only, a read-write only, or a read-write-execute capable system? And I think these are questions we will need to be answering. What is that need? Who does need that?
Yes, the answer is yes, we need that. The answer is yes, we should profit off of it. 25, 30 years ago when the cell phones first came out and people walking around in an airport with a bag, a giant suitcase with a phone on it, you looked at that and you said, what a display of ostentatiousness, right? And that's, whoever wants to walk around with a phone in a suitcase on their shoulder? And today we find the mobile devices invaluable and inseparable from us, and nobody will even go to the bathroom without their phone, right? The world changes and, it's get on board the train. That's the way it is.
So my question to everybody, I have a question because I can remember a couple of times. I can remember Linux World, where if you wanted to see all about Linux, and it was packed with all sorts of people there with all sorts of things, and most of them aren't around anymore. And then VMware, when virtualization got rolling, VMworld was a place to go, and you'd see all sorts of stuff that sometimes didn't even have anything to do with virtualization, but that's where you go to see new things. Where are we supposed to go right now to see all of these new products besides Tech Field Day? Like, where can we go where is there a central location to go to find these new things?
I lied. I think you mentioned it. The All Things Open folk are running on All Things AI, and their attendance was phenomenal. So it's a free conference. It's not an institutionalized like Linux. I remember Linux World. But I think right now in Raleigh in March, they've got All Things AI, and And you can attest to the All Things Open. There was a lot of AI conversations going on there with IBM.
And the diversity of the opinion. I think,
Yeah,
is the main
it will be an incredible in all especially I'm speaking there, but it is I think it's going to be an incredible first large scale AI event.
Well, who asked for this and when? Well, as has been pointed out, I mean, Star Trek premiered in the 1960s, right? It's not like this AI thing is just suddenly come along and no one's ever thought about, hey, how it might be useful and things like this. So, what always happens is we get the bandwidth, we get the processing power, we get the storage, we get this, that, or whatever, get the internet, and finally we can do these things. And the development of anything, there are lots of products that come up that look really exciting. Hey, the AI one I'm really excited about is AI generated emojis. I want an MPU on my laptop to do that. Well, not actually, right? Things like this. So we can have fun with this. I do think there's been a lot of consideration for this. We have to be careful about not, for the critics of it, not just going back to the good old days, right? When we didn't have this, that, whatever. You go back to the 50s, we had polio. Maybe they weren't the good old days after all, right? And things like this. So with all of this, we have to balance history. We have to see what's happened before. There's a cycle to the computer industry, right? Over and over and over again. So for the newer people entering this, learn your history because you'll see it happen again right here.
I will point out, I'm going to jump in here and point out, Mac OS 15.3 does have AI generated emoji, and apparently that was one of the most requested features by end users of Mac OS. And so that's the major new addition to Mac OS.
I'm just thinking back to the movie Oppenheimer from last summer, where Oppenheimer, it's like 2 hours before the bomb's going to go off, and the general says, wait, there's a risk of blowing up the world? Well, it's almost zero. What do you want? And the general goes, zero. And I'm very concerned. I'm thinking back to genetic engineering, where Dolly the sheep was cloned 25 years ago. And so far, we've still said, we will not clone humans, as far as we know. I'm not hearing that same kind of concern here, that we don't know what we're going to release. But it's cool and we can do it really fast. And so, I realize it can't be zero, but it better be damn near zero before we try doing things. And again, the reason I'm bringing up the genetic engineering is because many pharmaceutical companies are, I think we talked about this yesterday, are creating molecules faster than ever. Dude, we got to slow this down a bit. There is serious chances of harm. It's not going to be the next Ambien, right? Or something. Back to Jack's point this morning.
So to answer a couple things that came up, the first is, where to go. I think All Things Open is a great perspective. I think if you want to also understand the larger zeitgeist of what's going to happen, what we're all going to be marketed to, like you mentioned, drugs, go to South by Southwest, take in some of that interactive content, branch out beyond just the purest technology. It's about looking at the application in market of what you might be experiencing next. And so I think of it more multidisciplinary. If science is something that explains and predicts, if you think about where the very horrific origin story of a dive table from the Navy, people literally died to figure out what is appropriate for coming from a depth to not from that depth to going back up. So how we get that information, some of these simulation ideas are actually quite provocative in that, what if we didn't have to do animal testing? What if we didn't have to put people in harm's way? And what if there was a digital twin, a simulation that allowed us to do that? But at the same time, think of all the other horrible things that could be done. And that's the balance.
So I want to get it kind of refocused here, though. Are we developing products? I mean, to Andy's shirt yesterday, are we designing first or are we designing last? And, are we actually designing things that we want and then going to figure out how to build them? Or are we saying, whoa, this thing can make goofy pictures. Let's use that, Do we
But Stephen, it's not a binary choice,
Yeah.
right? We're very good at two things. We're very good at moving fast and breaking things, and we're very good at bigger, better, faster, more. And those are not incompatible with each other, and design and building cool toys and are not incompatible, and doing something and say, oh, that's cool, I can do something with this is valuable.
I think the question of are we designed first isn't actually a valid question. That's not how we create products. It's not how we create companies. It's not how we innovate. We take ideas and we create them and we explore. And sometimes it's very intentional and sometimes it's a Post-it note. It's accidental.
It depends on the product that you're.
Well, but my point is not everything is designed at the start. Well, most things I would contend are not designed, and it's the serendipitous, unintended outcomes that really are the innovations in many cases.
You know, that's actually true. If I can kind of jump in on that, if you look at some of the most successful products of the 21st century, certainly, they were not, that was not what they were supposed to be. I mean, everybody's talking about TikTok. TikTok was a karaoke app, right? Twitter, they certainly had no idea what Twitter was. In fact, I still don't think that they know what Twitter is.
Sure, I know.
You know, a lot of these things are just accidental, and it's about how people use them more than it is how they intended to be used.
But that kind of negates your whole premise for this discussion.
Yeah, totally.
But
That was my
It's our premise.
our premise for that discussion. But the way you're, well, anyways. So I think something that's changed as well is what is the intention for the product? So these goofy video games are, hang on a second. I got it. I'm sorry. Diane. So I think the goofy chats filters or face filters have this, they look like they're goofy and not doing anything. If they're free, they are. We're training models to look at faces and to make adjustments to faces and to do things. So we're actually providing data for somebody else's model. So there's actually a use that we're not seeing as a consumer of that application, right? And I think all of it just goes back to like, yeah, there's going to be a bunch of things. I think we'll see companies that create chasing. They might see a bunch of whales that need to solve a particular problem as they move towards adopting AI, and they have a clever way to solve that problem, and they may chase that. And that's fine because they'll get absorbed into another company and the technology will get absorbed into something bigger as a platform as this whole thing matures.
Did you say that whales are using AI?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And looping this back around to the original premise, it's like, no, we didn't necessarily ask for any of this. We're getting some of it, whether we like it or not. And I think since we are getting it, we do need to think about what we actually end up with and possibly make sure that we get some design put in along the way so we really do get what we want rather than getting something we really don't want, like Jay was describing.
Bob, did you want in?
Well, and we do have to ask what are the motivations of the people who are giving it to us, right? So whether they're reusing the data, right? You know, it just as was just mentioned and things like this. Twitter became really a political battleground, right? Continues to be that way. So, I mean, a lot of these tools, yeah, they're not what they originally intended to be. They evolved into something we didn't expect them to be, but we shouldn't just use them because they're cool, right? Did we ask for them? Why are we using them? Why are we still using them? People are leaving some of these services, right? And so we should examine these types of questions.
Well, and I agree with you, Bob. And one of the other unintended consequences that we didn't ask for definitely was that the content that we generate has become data fodder for these engines to build their context and information from. And I mean, that is certainly not something that we asked for. That was not something that we understood we were getting into when we started generating content that was being consumed by these things.
And when we created a hot or not app for college students, we certainly didn't know that it was going to change the politics of the entire globe and set up a new personalized advertisement-centric mega corporation. But yet here's Meta and Facebook and Instagram and all that. All of this it's a lot to think about.
The consequences of any technology that we produced over the last 2,000 years, when taken to extreme, can be very dangerous.
The thing is, they have been taken to extremes because the thing about it is whoever controls the narrative has the power. And at this
That was the
point,
case for newspapers.
it was
case
the case
for-
for
I
everything. And if you look at the printing press, there was even in the Americas, they had this was before there was a United States when the printing press was invented, and they were printing out leaflets, which was their view of spam, that were dissing on the king. Like so, like this has happened, and that's what happens forever and ever.
Exactly.
You see that the technology is able to persuade people and educate people and give a worldview to people, you of course want to control that and you want to use it for different purposes, which is why it is so critical to understand how they're using our content, how they're using our usage of an app, and then what becomes an app.
So I just would like to remind everybody here that since we're all sort of like data scientists, that remember that every disaster movie begins with a scientist being ignored. So I constantly, I'll be in a car someplace and my Uber driver will tell me, this is my part-time job. I'm really something else. Is AI going to take my job? Right? And we have to remember that there are a lot of people that have absolutely no idea of what this technology can do. And I think it's very important for us to consider that we're kind of the guardrail constructors and we need to keep shouting maybe from the top of the drive-through, window or something that, folks, we need to listen to what other people are saying. Because I am quite frightened by someone using this without guardrails to climb the heights of a corporation.
Go back to the printing press. How many people were put out to pasture because of the printing press? People were copying these manuscripts by hand in monasteries for centuries, and to create like 20 books or 100 books. Printing press comes along. Now we can create 1,000 books, images of the same thing in a matter of days.
Which is why there's so much power in that, because you could get thousands of pieces of information in front of people's hands.
Now it's millions of pieces of information
for sure.
in a matter of seconds rather than days.
For sure.
But the same problem exists. People are going to have to transition to other roles. AI is going to come along. It's going to take a lot of the things that we take and do for granted day in, day out, and we don't have to do them anymore.
Yeah.
We just have to move upscale.
That's fine.
But there's a lot more to that. I mean, we had the discussion yesterday about CEOs, right? Who from the survey saying, hey, employees, you're all with me. We're going to use this AI stuff and you're all going to be fully employed and we're going to be a great new corporation, right? And then they turn around the first chance they get and say, well, maybe not, right? I'll still be CEO, but you under employees, we're going to let you go because we did all this sort of stuff. There are always nuances and you can't just give them carte blanche to do the latest new thing.
Agreed.
Right.
And truthfully, job retraining hasn't worked very well in the past. In most cases, it's been retirement that's worked well to transition people as a whole, to transition a population from one industrial phase to another.
Listen, I was personally fired from my prior job. I had 50 to 150 people working underneath me. I was fired because I wouldn't do something that they wanted me to do. It took me years to understand how to be a consultant. You can do this sort of stuff, but you have to take it on. You have to be able to transition. You have to move forward from wherever you were.
Well,
I agree, but it also depends on your education and your support system.
But
This is lots of aspects.
Don't get me wrong. I saved up long and hard to get to that
Being
point.
stripped away, right? Anyway, there's a lot of depth.
the thing is too, though, that it's okay that we move on. The thing about, especially a new information delivery system, which is really what generative AI is, at least, right? Is that you have a lot of people who are very experienced, that it's taking the crap job away from them. There should be a way that the more experienced people now are able to fill in the holes for the people that are coming behind them that don't have to do the crap jobs anymore, which is how all of us learned all the details. That won't be what happens because we live in a capitalist society, but that's okay. But there's ways to make it so that the humans are doing the stuff we never could get around to, and the humans are training the people. It's not, that part's not the part that scares me. The part that scares me is the control of the narrative.
Well, we do have to wrap. We're actually hitting the end here. I agree with you, Ray. People can change and people can adapt to new skills. I mean, obviously, you have done it. As a population, it hasn't worked well. As a population, we haven't done a good job of designing first and building second. As a population, we generally have done whatever we can do and let the technology drive us instead of us driving the technology. And I see that happening in AI as well. And so I think, as was pointed out, it's incumbent on technologists to try to help guide that narrative because it's coming.